Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to EX3 Part 2, working with ultra clean kind of package design effects. And I'm in Photoshop right now after exporting from Illustrator, exporting a PSD file, and we opened up the PSD file. And we're going to throw some effects in here, including some pop dots. Now, one thing I'm going to do, first of all, with my ultra clean layer, now remember these all came in on their own layers, and you might see some extra folders and things like that, you know, if you're using text. But what I'm going to do, since I'm going to put a double line, I'm going to put a thin line around this, and then I'm going to put a bigger line around it. And to make the bigger line, instead of just using a stroke, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another layer. Now, the way you can do that is if you command click, you hold down your command key, and on Windows this would be control. If you command click on the ultra clean text right there, it'll make a selection of your text. So there it's making a selection of exactly what's there. And what I'm going to do is expand that selection by going to my select menu and going to modify, and I'll do expand. And you could expand it by a certain number of pixels. I'll start with 12 just to see how it looks. And there's 12 pixels. That looks okay. Maybe I'll expand it a little more. You could undo and go to select, modify, expand, and then instead of 12, maybe you want to do 16 rather than just adding 4 to it. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to fill it with white right now. Now before I do that, it'll fill right on that layer, so I want to make sure I make a new layer. So I'm going to create a new layer, and right now it's called layer 1. I'll just call it, ultra clean. I'll call it outline because that's kind of what it's really going to be. And I'm going to move it behind my ultra clean layer before I do anything, and I'm going to fill it with white. Now to fill something with white, you could do a couple things. You can go edit fill, and then this palette will come up and look for white. You could do that and hit OK. Another thing you could do also, if you use the foreground color, now right now it's black, or you could double click on here and choose white and hit OK. And then you could do Option Delete. Hold your Option key and your Delete key and do Option Delete. If you do Command Delete, it would actually make it black. But I'm going to do Option Delete and make it white right now. And that's all I want. And now if I deselect, it's its own layer. So if I turn off the text, there's my own layer of the text. So I could do whatever I want with that. What's nice is that outline, if I wanted to put a shadow behind it, I could go to Layer Style and put a drop shadow. And kind of check out how it looks. I'll increase the distance and I'll increase the size, maybe take it to like 10. Maybe I'll make my size a little bit more so it's a little blurrier, make it maybe like around 20. Usually I try to keep these the same, so if I make one 15, I'll make the other 15. I think I'll do that right now. Move that, let me move that back. Okay, that looks okay. I'll even turn down the opacity a little bit. I usually like to keep it around 50, so I'll turn the opacity down and I'll hit OK. Now what I can do now, that's just on the shadow. So that's just on the shadow part. If I want to put something on the text, if I could go on the ultra clean text layer, and I could go to layer, layer style, maybe I could put an outline on there. And I would do that by going to stroke, and I'll make one on the outside. And maybe I'll use like kind of a light blue color, kind of a clean. Since clean is the theme here, I'll use kind of a clean color. Now, blue won't show up quite as much. If you wanted to try orange, just to see what it looked like, you could do something like that. I think that's what I did on the other one. I'll hit OK, and I'll increase it just a little bit, maybe 4 pixels or so, just to get a little inner line on that. Now I could still put a shadow on that inner one too, but I'm just going to leave a little bit of orange. Maybe I'll go back and make it a little brighter orange, and I'll hit OK. So now I was able to put a stroke on my text and also put an outer, not really a stroke, but it's a filled object that's behind there. Another thing I'm going to do with my ultra clean is go to Layer Style and do a bevel and emboss. And I'll just give it a little bit of texture on here. Now I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit so I could see what's happening here. You could see there's kind of a lighter edge and a darker edge. You can adjust the depth on this if you want. And you can also adjust the size, you know, make it a little more bubbly looking if you want. I don't really want to do that, but I'll give it a little bit of look because you'll see a lot of those effects with packages. You could soften it if you want, but I'll just leave the size around 6 or 7 or so just to give a little bit of punch to that text. It looks okay. You could put gradients on here if you want. You could do anything you want. So I'm just putting a stroke and a bevel emboss. I don't need any texture or anything like that. So I'm going to hit OK. And then maybe down here, this It's Clean layer, maybe I'll just put a kind of a blue outline on that. Now I could do an outline, if I just want one outline, I'll just do it outside of here. I'll go to Layer Style and just go to stroke again. And on this one, you can see it's putting a black stroke. I'm going to choose the same blue that's in the middle here, and I'll just make it a little bit bigger. And there's kind of a blue stroke that's on there. And I have it around like 6 or 7 or so. Maybe I'll put like 7 just to make the difference. And that looks okay. And I'm going to leave it nice and white and clean. Could also throw a drop shadow on there. And I'll move this out of the way so I could see my drop shadow. And I think it should be on there. Let's see. Remember, when you're at the higher resolution you're not going to see shadows at like 5 pixels. It's going to be real subtle. So I want to make sure I put it up to like 15 or 16 or maybe just 10. I don't need this one quite as big as the big lettering, so I'll put it down to about 10, and that's probably fine. And I always like to put the opacity down to like 50. I don't want the shadows to look too dark. And that looks okay for now. If I wanted to change the color of my text, I could go in here to a color overlay. Now it always makes it red to start, but if you wanted something like, off-white or something, you could use the color overlay. I'm going to cancel that right now, and I'm going to cancel out of the color overlay and leave it like that. And that's okay with the drop shadow. So I have some effects here. Now other places I may want to do a drop shadow. I may want to put one on the starburst. I may want to put one on the new and improved text. And you can even copy effects. I could copy the drop shadow effect from here or wherever. I could go and now if you copy these, it'll put both of these. So I'm going to go down to where I did It's Clean, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to do copy layer style. And I'm going to go onto my starburst, and I notice I have auto select on, so it's clicking the starburst. And I'm going to right click here and do paste layer style. And it put a drop shadow and a stroke on there. And I just did that just to save time. Let me turn off the stroke. And it does have a drop shadow on there. Now I could double click on the drop shadow and adjust its angle if I want. If I want it going up or down, and I could uncheck global light. And I'll adjust my drop shadow so it's coming down. That looks okay. I like that kind of look there. You could put a glow on there too, but I'm using a drop shadow. And that's all I'm going to do on there. If you want to put a texture on there, click on there, put some kind of texture on your sun. That's okay too. And also, new and improved, I'm going to throw a drop shadow in there. I think I'm just going to go to layer style. And actually, let me zoom into this so I could see it a little bit better. I'll scroll up here so I could see my new and improved a little better. And remember that because I did in Illustrator, the stroke and the text is all on one layer, so it's only going to put a shadow behind this. So I'm going to go to layer style and put a drop shadow on it. And there's my drop shadow. And actually, it's putting a drop shadow on the text, which is interesting. Let me see where the stroke would be. Oh, so it's actually ignoring that. I thought it would go behind it in the back. So let me see something. Let me cancel out of this a second. I didn't even look at this layer yet. So this is new and improved. And oh, that's nice. Actually, I didn't realize it would do that. It actually put the new and improved outline on a separate layer because I used that effect in Illustrator. It put it on a separate layer, which is nice. So that way I can put a drop shadow on just this. I could go to layer style and put a drop shadow on just the outline part. That's nice that it did that automatically. And I'll just reduce it a little bit. And then if I wanted to do anything on the new and improved, I could, which I'm not going to. But if you needed to change the color, anything like that, you could do, if you decided you like it orange, you could go to the new and improved text. Notice I have a text and I have the outline, so I could go to the text. If I wanted to do a color overlay, I could do a color overlay and make it red, orange, anything, or just change the blue. Maybe I don't like the blue that's on there. I could change that blue color and maybe, make a brighter blue. Anything you want. So I'll do that for now. I'll just, again, this is just kind of experiment a little bit. I'll zoom out. And there's my new and improved. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do the pop dots. Also, one thing before I do the pop dots, text might be showing up as a font missing. You could put that in any kind of generic font like Helvetica or Myriad or something like that if you're getting a message about the font missing, because I think I had that in Frutiger or something like that, which may not be on your system. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the pop dots after doing some of these effects here.